We are now reconvening the study session, and our next item is to provide direction on whether to place Judge Umpleby's name on the Monday council agenda for appointment as the next presiding magistrate. Council members, do we want to provide that direction?
Yes.
We're not doing a motion, but it's just putting it on the agenda. So it's just a consensus of whether or not we want to do that. I'm seeing heads nod, and that reflects my understanding. Thank you. Because the Arizona Supreme Court wants a presiding magistrate at all times and Judge Tatz is retiring this week, we need to appoint an interim presiding magistrate to fill the brief gap until Monday night. So is there a motion to appoint Judge Umpleby as the interim presiding magistrate to fill this gap? Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Spilsbury, seconded by Vice Mayor Heredia. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That passes unanimously. As I indicated a moment ago, Judge Tatz is retiring. Judge Tatz has done an amazing job as the presiding judge of the Mesa Municipal Court. Under his leadership, we have, I would, in all humility, say that we have developed the best city court in the state. We are well known for being innovative, including developing specialty courts like the community court and the veterans court, and most recently the domestic violence court, and that's because of Judge Tatz. He is a humble man and has absolutely refused to have any type of a ceremony or even some punch after work to commemorate his service at the city of Mesa. Those of you who know Judge Tatz know that that's just very consistent with who he is and his character. But Judge Tatz, we can't let you go without letting you know that we are very, very grateful as a community for your service, and you have left a tremendous impact on our city, so thank you very much. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you. We will now go back to item 1 on our agenda, which is to review the agenda we have for Monday, April the 15th. So council, please refer to that document. I know we discussed it at our last study session as well. But council, Mr. Brady, is there any changes to this agenda?
Yeah. Yes, Mayor and City Council. So item 7A on your agenda, the applicant is requested that that item be removed from the agenda.
All right, thank you. Council, other items on this agenda that you have any questions for? Pretty straightforward. Currently, there's nothing off of the consent agenda for Monday. All right, thank you. Given that we're still in budget hearings, it's not a bad thing if we keep moving. Next item on our agenda, item 4A, is a presentation and a discussion on a project known as the Destination at Gateway, including the rezoning case and new development agreement.
So Mayor, this item we're presenting to you to give you an update is actually which item is it marked on the agenda?
I didn't bring that up. Jim Scouring.
Item 6D. 6D.
Yes.
So item 6D. So we're going to give you we want to give you the history and kind of the latest where we are with item 6D. It's an amendment to an existing development agreement. We want to just kind of bring you up to speed of where we're on that. But this will relate to item 6D on your agenda for Monday. Okay.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. I'll go ahead and let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Nick.
Yeah. Morning, Mayor and Council. My name is Nick Juszczyk, Economic Development Project Manager.
Good morning, Kelly Whittemore, Deputy City Attorney.
And Mark Hirschberg, Deputy City Manager. As Mr. Brady mentioned, we're here to discuss the background rezoning and amended development agreement for the Burge Automotive Development. This project is located south of Williamsfield Road on the east and west of sides of Signal Butte Road, east and west sides of Signal Butte Road. We're going to go back in time a little bit to the 2020 agreement, and Kelly's going to touch on that.
So this project began back in 2019, so this is one of those pre-COVID projects. So we all have that line in our brains, so we're going to go back just a little bit. The original project that you're dealing with, Destination at Gateway, and it has the same name as it does today, is the orange area that is shown on the slide that's in front of you. We did a rezoning back in 2020 as well as in a development agreement. It was generally for the rezoning to do the area for general commercial. For the actual proposal that went forward, it was an 89-acre mixed-use development. It was designed to have commercial uses, and at the time we talked mostly about new car auto dealerships that would actually locate at the area, as well as some supporting retail for that. And then as a, I will say secondary, but there was a smaller amount of multiple residents that was going to be included. So for example, the development agreement required you had a minimum of 60% commercial and a maximum of 40% retail. There was a reimbursement for public infrastructure improvements, which we're going to talk about a little bit because this is a little different than other DAs you would have seen previously. The last time the council would have seen a DA like this was this DA back in 2020, and we'll get into the weeds, but it's called a retail sales tax incentive agreement, and it deals with reimbursing a developer owner for the particular infrastructure that they construct, and it's giving them 50% of the retail sales tax that is generated from the project. But we'll get into the weeds on that a little bit. So now let's talk about some of the changes that we're looking at for the destination and gateway for the 2024 amendment. So what was a 89-acre parcel is now being looked at to be 127 acres, as well as a possible inclusion of a 27-acre portion of property that is currently located in the county. If you look at the map in front of you, it's the area outlined around State Route 24. There, again, we're still looking at commercial uses, but this time it would be not only new auto dealerships that we're talking about, but also used and motorcycle. That's going to play into the retail sales tax incentive again that we'll talk about in just a little bit. There will also be some supporting retail that goes with that. Something new for 2024 is the general commercial that's going to be included. So that area of the screen that is highlighted in light blue, that would be an area that would have just more a general retail that would be unrelated to the auto dealerships in terms of being an auto use. We're also still looking at multiple residents. On the map, just to give an idea, it would be in the upper right quadrant of the orange area on the map that's to the east of Signal Butte. Part of that is designed in order to, you'll notice there's a residential housing neighborhood that would be up in that area as well. Part of that's designed to create a buffer between the auto dealerships as well as the residential housing. There is also, just for reference for the council, there's single residential housing across Williams Field as well. One of the things that we're looking at in terms of the changes to this DA is it will be an increase in the amount of the reimbursement that we will be giving. So what is currently $6 million, the request is now $14.4 million. That is primarily because they're adding quite a bit of property, and so there's extra infrastructure that's going to be needed to be installed. And this is ultimately infrastructure that the city ends up owning once it's all installed. But also because prices, as we all know, have gone up since pre-2020, and so it's to cover some of that issue as well.
Really quick, just wanted to bring your attention back to 2018. This was when we had an automotive point analysis done, and this was looking at the city and where can we actually locate a new car dealership. And so this was basically looked at the assessment of visibility and other demographic features, and basically the findings were at this intersection here at the 24 and Signal Butte Road is where an auto mall can successfully locate in the city. And so that's based on some of the other clusters that are around the city and in other neighboring cities as well. So this is the one point in the city where an auto mall can be located.
So as noted previously, it would be an up to $14.4 million reimbursement. Again, this is a reimbursement of 50%, and we'll get into the weeds a little more on that, of the non-dedicated sales tax. So this would have been sales tax generated by the retail function of new auto dealerships, used auto dealerships, as well as motorcycle dealerships.
And Kelly, just real quickly, when she says non-dedicated, what does that mean? Yeah. So remember, we do have street sales tax and we have a public safety sales tax. So this does not include those. Those will be collected at 100%. It's the other, I don't know what you call it, general sales tax.
Yes.
Non-specific, that only 50%, it will split to 50%. And again, these are for public infrastructure, right? It's not private infrastructure, it's public infrastructure, reimbursement based on the performance of collecting sales tax by these auto dealerships. So they have to generate the sales tax before they can get it reimbursed. So for us, it motivates a lot of car sales and expansion of car dealerships at this location.
Thank you, Mr. Brady.
Can I ask a question
Oh,
on that?
please, yeah.
You know, thank you, Mr. Brady, because when people hear the word incentives, they get all wigged out.
Right.
I'm sorry about that, you know, but it's important that you define what these incentives are
Right.
and how they're applied, and that the city will own the infrastructure at the end of the day.
It benefits the city, it benefits ultimately from just a ROI standpoint, we get to have one of the highest producing sales tax types of activities in the city. We've already done this deal in 2018. We're expanding, the area's expanding, and so we have to expand the area. But in the end of the day, we've done this with other projects where sometimes we limit it to the construction sales tax to help refund or reimburse for the public improvement. So these become back to the public, whether it's the water, the sewer, the streets. I think in this case, there's some stormwater benefit, which is really helpful for this area. So it is a way for us to help cover. Now, some of those costs might have otherwise been covered by a private developer, but because they are also generating sales tax that will go beyond the time, once these are paid off, we will then collect 100% of the sales tax going forward. So we see that as a positive repayment back to the city very quickly.
Well, and plus there's a timeline attached to
Right.
this.
Yeah, Mayor and Council.
So
we-
that's important.
Yeah.
So get in the weeds.
Oh,
Sorry.
you're right. The favorite part. We will dig into the weeds. We'll talk a little bit, Nick, in just a moment, we'll talk a little bit about exactly the type of infrastructure that we're talking about, so you'll see that, as well as there is a breakdown on a future slide about exactly what those non-dedicated sales tax represent, just so you have a little better idea of that. But just for a reference point in terms of timing, so the infrastructure and improvements have to be completed and dedicated by April 1st, 2028. It also has to meet certain requirements in the development agreement, which would include they have to meet Title 34 requirements in order to be eligible for reimbursement. As well, there are certain right-of-way dedications that have to take place equally by that date of April 1st, 2028. And then the first new car dealership has to be open and operating so that the public can be there as of July 1st, 2029. So these are the conditions precedent to receiving the rebate. If those conditions precedent, as the DA is structured, are not met, then they would not be eligible to receive the retail sales tax incentive.
The Title 34 reference suggests that they have to go through the public bidding process as if we're doing it ourselves as a city.
Can I just clarify one thing from my head? So on the reimbursement of this sales tax, is there an estimated timeline how long that would take in order to have that reimbursement? They have the deadlines on installing it and business operations and such, but the return could be beyond those dates, right?
Yeah.
The reimbursement?
Mayor, Councilmember Duff, so we will get into that because we're required under statute to do an economic analysis to
Okay.
ensure that the city is able to gain more money from the deal than what would actually be reimbursed to the developer owner.
Okay.
And Nick will talk about that a little bit in terms
Okay.
of that economic
But
analysis.
it doesn't go on forever, if that's
No,
what
it
you're
does
asking.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would like to touch on just a little bit on the infrastructure that's eligible for the reimbursement, right? So this is, as you can see on the first slide, the initial 127 acres. Basically, Signal Butte Road, the southern half of Williamsfield Road, Unity and Underwood. So basically, this is the frontage of where the auto mall dealerships will be located. And so we're only, or they're only eligible for reimbursement on the frontage of basically where the auto malls will be. It won't be for any of the other additional commercial or residential that's coming in. And as you can see there on the left, there's a handful of things, basically half-street improvements that are going to be included in that reimbursement. Next slide. So this is potential if this gets annexed, right, the 27 acres. This is just the west side of Signal Butte Road, the southern half there. And so same thing, essentially half-street improvements for the annexed property.
And Mayor and Council, if I can add a little bit to that one. So in terms of the annexation would have to go through our standard annexation process. So this would come before council. So that's just an element of the DA that the developer would have to meet in order for any retail sales tax to be counted towards the incentive that takes place on that property. It has to be in the city's jurisdiction. In terms of the green area right there, that's right-of-way that the city is going to need related to Signal Butte, that the developer will need to have developed related to Signal Butte. So that could become a part of the DA separate from an annexation process, because there is a separate annexation process related to right-of-way that we would work with the county on if it came forward. All right, in terms of how this retail sales tax incentive works, so again, it's 50% of the 1.2% non-dedicated, stumbling over my words, non-dedicated general fund sales tax. So the City of Mesa's total sales tax that we collect currently is 2%. And you'll see, based on the slide, that reimbursement, or that 2% does normally include streets and maintenance, a quality of life, and a public safety dedicated sales tax. Again, those are not included in what would be eligible for reimbursement. There is 1.2% that's left over, and of that 1.2%, 50% is what the developer would be eligible to have reimbursed. Now, it will cover taxable activities at new car dealerships as well as used car dealerships. Motorcycle dealerships do not come into play until after 2 new car dealerships are installed on the property. So that way we ensure that the auto mall that we were working towards actually is something that the developer is also working towards. The reimbursement is capped at a total of $14.4 million. So even if the cost went up to install that same infrastructure that the city would ultimately be responsible for, $4.4 million is the cap in the DA. The incentive period total, which is the time period in which they could be reimbursed that 50% of the non-dedicated sales tax, is a 12-year period initially. That is the term. And it starts when that first new car dealership is opened and they've met all those other conditions precedent we talked about in terms of those deadlines in April and July. And then after that, they have the option to have that time period extended up to 3 times for 3 years apiece for each new car dealership that is also developed and opened for the public on that particular project. So in total, they have a maximum economic incentive period that could go until December 31st of 2050. So a couple of items that we wanted to point out that are a part of this DA. First off, again, I'd mentioned previously, but there is a requirement that a minimum of the project property, 60%, must be used for commercial, which would include the auto dealerships. And there's a maximum of 40% residential. The residential is also restricted to certain portions of the property it can't be on. For example, it can't be abutting up along Signal Butte Road. There are also some prohibited uses. This was not in the current version of the DA. I do want to make sure I'm clear that there is a current DA that is out there that is active on this project. So this is an amendment and restatement of the current DA. Those prohibited uses include limitations on standalone auto repair stations and service stations, as well as car washes, and there's also a limitation on the number of drive-throughs in terms of freestanding food and beverage drive-throughs. We're also currently working with the developer on the language, but we want to include a requirement that there is a comprehensive design guideline that's submitted to the city prior to the approval of any site plan, so that we see, the architecture and the design of the area all is cohesive. I'll use that word. And finally, we're also talking to the developer about limitations on the use of PA systems and lighting requirements to minimize impacts related to single-family residential. Particularly, that's going to relate to those across Williamsville Road. So the economic impact, let's talk a little statute. So ARS 9511, it has very specific requirements related to retail sales tax incentive agreements, which is why you will see this particular DA has to appear on 2 separate council agendas. And Nick will go into the dates on that a little bit. But the proposed retail sales tax incentive has to raise more revenue than the amount of the incentive that's being provided to the dealership. So it has to raise more than that $14.4 million. And the dealerships would not locate in Mesa in the same time, place, or manner in the absence of the tax incentive. So that's another requirement of the statute. That independent third-party review in terms of the incentive is being done by Applied Economics, and again, Nick will get into that with you. But in terms of these sales tax incentives that are offered to these retail businesses, they have to be for the public infrastructure that this is for. So we couldn't provide them an additional incentive outside of that public infrastructure based on the language of the statute and how this particular DA is being utilized. So you will see separate resolutions coming forward. The resolution coming forward on Monday is a notice requirement that's related to the statutes. They require that we give the public notice. This is not approval of the DA. This is not approval of the rezoning of the project. It's just giving the public notice that the council will be considering the DA at a later date.
Mayor and council, so just,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
On
please.
RS 9500, the second portion dealerships would not, how do you show that?
So, Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, so that can be shown in a few different ways. Part of it is in terms of just in working with the dealer, and the dealer is able, the retail sales tax project actually is able to say that they would not be able to locate based upon that. That's part of the findings that we put forward to council, is that they would not be able to locate because of that. A lot of times these retail sales tax projects require these extra incentives in order for them to make their numbers work in order to locate in a certain location. So that is something that we would bring forward to council. But it's just a requirement of the statute that that's the reason that we're giving them the incentive. On top of it, that plus they also have to show that the revenues are going to be more than what we would otherwise receive.
So Nick, you mentioned we did an assessment.
Yes.
Was that generated from externally, or did the city just decided to do that?
Yeah, Mayor and Councilmember Goforth, yeah, we basically are contracted to go through a third party, and that was through Applied Economics, which Kelly had mentioned. And so just to briefly touch on it, right, so we're just looking at that slide. And so Sarah Murley with Applied Economics, we had her analyze this, and we provided her with, hard costs of construction, estimated sales tax that we were anticipated to get based on, I believe it's the top 10 current dealerships that we get, just so we have an idea of what is actually we're receiving currently. So we provided all that information to Sarah. She runs the analysis. And as you can see here, right, so if we were assuming just one dealership opens, right, within that time frame of by 2029, by 2034, they would be only eligible for $2.9 million in reimbursement, whereas revenues to the city would be 7.2. And at 7.2, that would include the construction sales tax of that first dealership and the retail sales from the car dealerships as well. So, whereas, what we're trying to incentivize them to do is build more dealerships, right, so they can actually get reimbursed that full $14.4 million amount. And so that's where, just the example below, right, 8 dealerships by 2034, you could see clearly they would hit that 14.4 million threshold of what they would be eligible for reimbursement. And then the city, in that same time period, we would be receiving almost $43 million.
I think the threshold of all because this is being built out kind of away from where infrastructure, it's a fairly new development, right? So the burden of all this public infrastructure is significant for, these car dealerships. And I will also tell you, it is very much on par with almost, and we've kind of, there's been, Queen Creek is doing this south of this, same thing, but, and so there is this kind of competition to get the different dealerships into your communities, because absence a primary property tax, the sales tax is king. And the biggest generator, if I were to show you a heat map where sales tax is most likely collected, it's going to be a car dealership. And so, but then the dealerships require, I forget what the distance, they can't be within a certain distance of each other. So there's both this, they have to find the right location where they can buy the property and build out these large dealerships, but then the dealers have to be so far apart from each other. So that's why when they do the analysis, where would a car dealership work in Mesa, this may be new, as far as new, this may be the last location, right? And that's why it's pushed so far east on the 24.
Do we have the same incentive program set up with our other auto malls in Mesa?
I don't know what we've done in the past. We did something for oh, that's right, we did do something for Superstition, but some of them, yeah. But we've done this for other big developments. A lot of times it's construction sales tax that we'll reimburse. We're in conversations with ASU Poly. You might have heard ASU talk about that. That's what that deal is, right? It's reimbursing for the public infrastructure that's not there. And so in lieu of us offering to go build the infrastructure, what we're suggesting is you perform,
right.
you generate the revenues that will benefit us in the long term, and we'll reimburse you for a specific period of time for those improvements. So they're required, before they open, right, they take the risk that they're going to build these out. They're going to put all these improvements in. And so we like that because it creates motivation for them to create the sales tax collection activity to get those paid for and to continue to motivate them to grow and increase that area.
And Mayor and Council, just for clarification, in terms of the economic analysis, that would be provided to you as a part of the actual approval we'll send forward to you for an option for the DA. So you'll get the chance to see that in more detail. We're just giving you a heads up, for lack of a better term, in terms of that you will be receiving a copy of that.
And Mayor, if I may, just going back to Councilmember Goforth's question, and I think Nick and Chris also sort of answered it in another way. If you look at time, place, and manner, you see the structure of the deal also incentivizes time, place, and manner. In other words, they're incentivized to come in early, they're incentivized to build more. In order to get the full reimbursement and the extensions in the agreement, you have to build more. Additionally, there's sort of a unique situation in this case. They've shown that the current incentive is not enough. They've had an agreement with an incentive for 4 years, and they haven't constructed anything. And so they aren't just going to build an auto dealership out there. They've shown that they aren't without an incentive agreement.
And Mayor, council members, just to reiterate that, I do want to give credit that the developer is motivated. They're already out there on Williams Field installing public improvements now without an approved DA. Well, under the amended, without it, the amended DA at this point as well, too. So credit to them for doing that in advance of this being formalized as well.
Now, when we come to council and present these deals to you, it seems like, well, this was pretty easy. This has been a very, very difficult agreement. So it's kind of like the mayor talks about how, we're very humble and proud of our humility. This is where staff has gone through months and months it's just a challenge, right? Because we don't want to over-incentivize. We want to make sure we're looking after the city's interests. But the developer is bringing up with some very valid issues, as we've kind of talked about, improvements need to be done. Stormwater became a big issue, and how to deal with that, and whether is it a private benefit or does it have public benefit, and trying to draw that line. Creating these incentives where we motivate the developer, the car dealerships, like what is the right, appropriate, like, okay, you build it, you get incentive for a period of time, but how much longer do you get to extend? And so this has taken a long time to get here, and I appreciate the diligence of the staff, because this has not been easy. We've been going through this for a long time. But credit to our car dealership partners. They've stuck with us. They have been enticed by other communities. But the good news is when you go and see the locations where they currently are doing business, they are very robust and very active car dealerships. And you look at what happened at the Santan Auto Mall. These are some of the same dealers who are looking to try to come out to those locations. And those are big deals for cities, so.
Vice Mayor.
Mark, does this coincide with the improvements on the 24? I know it stops there at Signal View with a light, and it gets pretty much backed up to 202 and high traffic time. So I don't know if is it going to be a exit there, I'm assuming, right? So
Signal View has an existing,
It's a
That's
signalized.
at grade.
It's a
Signalized at grade
yeah,
now.
it's
Flyover.
flyover.
but is the timeline based, I think it's Prop 4, it's
479.
479 contingent on improving the 24, but is there a timeline there? I can't remember.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, the second phase, the enhancements to SR 24 that you're referencing is in phase 1 of Prop 479. So if that were to be approved, it would happen in the first 5 years. So it would somewhat sync up. I think, I don't know if I could say intentionally, but it would coincide with some of the
fact is that the 24 goes all the way to Ironwood today,
Yeah.
right? So this is importing sales tax, right? Because you have a lot of traffic coming out of the Santan Valley, coming up from Queen Creek. So getting the right dealerships here quickly will be collecting sales tax from people outside Mesa too. So this is
Makes sense, yeah.
I can't remember what term we used, but when we were building the 24 and talking about Signal View, from day one, even before these folks showed up, we realized this was going to be a significant intersection because it really links the whole Santan Valley now back into the valley, right? And so having this location was really ideal.
I was actually on Signal View and the 24 yesterday. Oh. I know. And it was horrible. Like, the traffic's so bad.
Already? Wow.
Like, you sit there at that light forever to get off, and you have to sit there forever to get back on anyways. So it would
That's
be
why
really
you
good
live in
if
Mesa.
this is why, I know. So, but I would love it if that happened before a lot of this is built, or it's gonna just be worse, but yeah.
I have a question, it's just for my information on the zoning. So multiple residence is targeted for the northeast part of this property? And does GC allow that? I mean, how does that work?
It's a very question.
Mayor, Councilmember Duff, so what we're looking at here, and it's part of the DA, is that we would allow a certain amount of residential in that area so that it is a support use. We've got the residential directly to the east of it, so as part of the DA, we would allow that portion to have some of that residential.
Would it have to rezone, or you just allow it within?
The
GC?
zoning would allow that,
Oh, it would allow it?
the way that we're,
Okay.
because there's a PAD on it.
Hey,
Oh,
Yeah.
the PAD is the
Security?
defining factor?
So,
Sean?
speaking of the zoning, Mr. Lake, can you respond to
Attorney
that?
should-
I beg your indulgence here. The zoning already permits it.
Oh, okay.
This action
All
that
right.
you'll be looking at does not include any of that portion in red. You're only rezoning in your vote coming up, the area in green, light blue, and dark blue.
Okay.
The area in red is already zoned and already permits the multifamily
Okay.
today.
Okay.
So nothing will change with the action by the council.
And
as far
permits
as that
it
goes.
within that 40%, or?
That percentage stays the same. I think it's 40%, and it describes how it must be built, where it must be built, the distance it has to be away from Signal Butte. It can't
but none
cover
of,
the
we
front.
didn't modify any of that.
None of that's changed. That was all done 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago.
2018, yeah.
Mayor, council members, the only thing that has changed is that the current version of the DA has a maximum density of 550 units that would be allowed in that 40% maximum of residential. That particular density requirement has been removed, is suggested to be removed for the amendment.
So, Mayor, Council, I also want to point out that even though Councilmember Summers is absent, we have worked extensively with him on this development agreement, and he's well aware of where the direction we're headed and the conditions that, as well as some that he requested that we're working through, and including those in the DA as well. So, next steps, as we've talked about, on Monday evening, item 6D is a notice of intent to enter into a retail development tax incentive agreement. On May 6th, you'll hear an introduction to a zoning ordinance for those areas that Sean just mentioned. And then on May 20th, at that meeting, council will consider and take action on both the rezoning request and the development agreement simultaneously.
All right, thank you. Council, any additional questions on this? All right, so this is currently on the consent agenda.
The notices, yeah.
All right. All right, thank you very much. Item 4D on our agenda for this meeting is a presentation and discussion on utility projects included in the capital improvement program.
So Mayor, Council, this is our utility CIP presentation. We also will come back. I don't know, when are we scheduled, Brian, to do the general governmental CIP?
We will
Is
be
it
doing
couple
that on
weeks?
May 2nd.
May 2nd, okay. So we kind of do the CIPs. We want to present the projects that are lined up. One of the things we want to do on May 2nd is also to remind the council of all the things we've been doing, have accomplished, the projects that have been completed, and projects that are being proposed. But right now, today, we're focused on the utility side of the CIP.
So yes, thank you, Mayor, Council. So what we'll be doing is talking about the utility capital improvement, so continuing the theme of project-based presentations, but then also within the next today and also on Monday, it'll be a concentration of the utility departments themselves presenting their budgets. And so today is really just an overview of some of the projects that the utilities have been working on, completed, and some of the future projects that we'll be looking at doing. So just to remind the council, CIP funding sources. So we do use cash or local revenues, which is the rates and the fees that the utilities do bring in. We do use some of that for projects. We also do get grants for some of those projects. And then we also utilize utility revenue obligations, which is a form of debt. And then also we've started on a few separate projects using utility taxable obligations. So those mechanisms is what we use to fund the projects. We also, in this process, look at the operations and maintenance of continuing what has been built. So we just don't want to build it and then let it sit. We look at the budget and put into the utilities that ongoing operation and maintenance costs. So for instance, additional staffing at some plant expansions that may occur, maintenance cost for that plant expansion, it gets included in their budgets. Also in there is for some one-time things of like furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and then maybe some vehicles for the staff. So that gets all in the budgets also. Current challenges, as we've seen in the past couple of years, and what was presented in the overview of the proposed budget, we also see in the CIP is cost overruns and delays of receiving construction materials, increased labor costs, and just increases altogether from the high inflation. As some of you may have seen yesterday, the new inflation came out and we ticked up to 3.5% on in the US. So we're still seeing higher inflation than normal for commodities, services, and contracts. And then also just keeping up with growth while maintaining current infrastructure.
Mayor, council, despite the challenges, the city has had a very productive year. In fact, when I reached out to the utility departments, the list they gave me was so extensive I couldn't even put it on these slides. So we narrowed it down to just a few. We'd like to point out that a lot of these are utility projects that are upgrading, replacing aging infrastructure. Listed here, though, for energy resources, we have some new services. These are apartment complex or condos. Recently opened is the most recent open. It is the Residences on First, the First and McDonald. They received their certificate of occupancy in February. Another completed project is phase 1 of the AMI. This phase was a small-scale test. About 1,200 meters were purchased and installed, and a communication network was built. Arcadis is our project management group, and they are testing the communications now. Projects under construction, again, I got another long list from the utilities. Here's a few. Several, again, are for aging infrastructure. But the Northwest Water Reclamation Plant, they want to replace the centrifuge systems. They are nearing their useful life, and they are essential for treating solids. Pictured here is the Central Mesa reuse pipeline. Once completed, it will boost Mesa's water portfolio. Under construction is the AMI Phase 2. It is similar to Phase 1, but it is on a larger scale, and the facility, our warehouse, has to go through some minor improvements for loading, unloading the meters that are coming in and securing the facility. Projects to be initiated for 24-25. The top one we have here is the securities project for the Rogers substation. This is a substation the city of Mesa co-owns with SRP. They want to remove the chain link fence around it, build a block wall, and put up cameras and an access gate to improve the security over there. Waters projects, again, they're keeping with the theme of replacing aging infrastructure. And then Solid Waste did a study on the downtown trash compactors, and the 2 stars located are the points where they find the best place to put them. Lastly, we have some life cycle purchases. Life cycles are multi-year plans to address significant cyclical or recurring costs that are beyond a department's ability to fund within its operating budget. Some of them include vehicle replacements. As you can imagine, a solid waste truck is quite expensive. The solid waste tablet project is currently being looked into. Large water meter replacements and the water compliance lab equipment.
So with that, Mayor and Council, as I said, it's a brief overview of just some of the highlights of some of the projects that have been completed, that we're currently under construction, but then also what we're looking to initiate in fiscal year 24, 25, and then also some of the life cycle or ongoing costs that the utilities have. Specifically, one of them that I know Solid Waste will come up and talk about is their tablet program, which will help with efficiencies of their routing and other things. So with that, if we're here for any questions.
Ms. Pillsbury.
I'm just, maybe this isn't the point of this presentation, but there's no numbers at all in this. And so do we have access to how much we've spent on CIP projects or what is, just something like that with the numbers?
Yes, online, and I can forward it to council, but online, we do have the CIP book that lists all the projects and the
With
the
totals?
budgets.
I don't want to look through the details.
No, and then we also have online, I think engineering or Beth, they have a map to where you can go into the specific project and see how much has been spent, what's been allocated to it,
Okay.
and things like that. So there are access online on our transparency pages for
Okay.
looking at those
I know
specific
it's,
projects.
I mean, constantly revolving and moving and changing, so it's hard. But just to kind of get like a general idea of like how much
And
money.
it's multiple years too, so.
It is.
Right.
But we should give you that, we'll send you that link out so you can get to it.
Okay.
Do not go.
Will I
search
be
for it.
able to navigate that?
Yes. Because it's intended for.
I want more of like a
It's
summary.
intended for residents to be able to track
Okay.
the projects in
So I'll see
their
how
area.
easy it is for a resident to
Yeah, I
be able
mean, that's
to.
the intent too, is just to make it so if there's a project in their area, know what's going on, or what's planned to happen in my area.
Okay.
So we can give you that link.
Well, I might add to that, again, the utility revenue obligations and the utility taxable obligations, kind of, the numbers, I like seeing the numbers on that too, how that's defined.
Yeah, this is just a high-level
It's-
briefing,
yeah.
and then
I know we'll get into
we
that
get into the
later.
bigger document, yeah.
Once we do all of the CIP?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you will adopt the CIP separate than the operating budget.
Yes.
Rather than a question, I do want to share that I met just a day or two ago with a downtown business person who was expressing some frustration about all of the added expense of developing a project in downtown. Because as we talk about aging infrastructure, we have created a very attractive and welcoming and cool environment in downtown. But but we still have work to do. There's still a lot of dark spots, and along our Main Street. And a lot of people want to come in and be a part of that, but we're already maxed out when it comes to electricity and when it comes to water. And so for these folks to come in and develop those properties, there's a premium that they have to pay that doesn't apply to other parts of the city.
Well,
So, yeah, I'm
go ask a
interested to get your
developer who's
reaction.
trying to get SRP power. It's just an issue across the entire city. If you're going in and you're using like for like use, it probably works out much faster if you're coming in and having more intense use than what it was originally intended for. Both downtown and we have, we're always running interference with SRP with developers on the east side also because of just the power needs that are needed out there. So it's, downtown is more of it's an infrastructure issue, it could be, but a lot of it is just the intensity of the uses now that we're getting. So we're converting something that used to be a storefront, and now it needs to be a restaurant, or taking a car dealership lot and turning it into multifamily. It's just a different pull on the power, right? And so we're having to work on what we can do to bring more of that into the area. So yeah, it's a balance, but I wouldn't say that we're seeing the same challenges in Southeast Mesa where you have raw land and you have an assumption of growth, and you come in with big manufacturing plants or data centers, and we have the same conversation, just at a different scale in Southeast Mesa.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I think we need to continue to be business friendly. A moment ago, we were addressing the costs of developing a greenfield car dealership, and we're working with the developer to make it affordable to do that. I think we need to have a similar attitude at downtown.
Sure.
Because we're in the business of selling water and power and collecting sales tax off of an entertainment district that we have spent many millions of dollars to create. And so I think we need to be mindful of that and maybe set some money aside to figure out how we can.
Well, yeah, I don't
Customer-friendly.
disagree, Mayor. Matter of fact, if you go look at what we subsidize for Eco Mesa, what we've subsidized for many of the other big developments down, we have done that. The electric utility has contributed significantly on the power to a lot of these large developments. Now, the balance is, how much does the city benefit that, especially in a small electric utility, because then that cost gets paid off, or gets passed on to the rest of the ratepayers. So it's a balance there. But Country Club in Mesa, or Country Club in Maine, Eco Mesa, Brown and Brown, what is it called now? Yeah, Melodies on Main. All of those have benefited from the cities. We have to get into those conversations, and we have to make a decision at some point how much the city is going to contribute or support those development. But we go through the same analysis, right? We say over time, just like we did with sales tax, but we're doing that on the utility side. Okay, yes, we're going to have to contribute a significant amount of capital, but over a period of time of a now big utility user, eventually when do we get that return back on investment? So we do that analysis for all of these big projects. So it may not be sales tax, but it may be in utility infrastructure.
Mayor, can I ask, was that a small
Please.
business owner or a large?
Small business
developer?
owners.
Yeah,
small
so I think
business.
there's a distinction, right? I mean, we have to, these are all, we're talking
Yeah.
about these large developments that are getting these incentives. We have to have a different program.
Sure.
When we want and we've said, we want downtown to be small business owners
Right.
and unique, local. So we have to have a
And
program for
we
them as well.
have significantly extended 12 West, and all of the utilities would be put behind the water, gas, and sewer behind all those buildings in the alleyways that would normally be the cost of a private sector. We've gone in and put a lot of that in. I'd like to know the specifics because we've tried to accommodate everyone, but there is a, we have to be careful how much we push over onto the rest of the ratepayers. But it doesn't go that the city never doesn't say you're 100%. We've already invested a lot, especially in the alleyways behind, running parallel with Main Street and downtown on the water sewer. I can't remember if gas was included in that or not, but we've done some. But we can certainly take all those and have those conversations.
As far as the downtown, a lot of the small local independent businesses, they're renting the space and they're coming into spaces that might be a different use than prior. And maybe they have to bring it up to code. These buildings that maybe had a long-term business in there and then now 20, 40 years later, the electric, the water, the sewer. And so we have the infrastructure at the street, but they have to bring it into the building. And they're renting the space, so it becomes, I think the biggest thing we could do as a city, a couple things, is, number one, is there any way through the Downtown Transformation Office, we can say, you want to do X, this is the capacities in the building, and this is where you need to go, because I think a lot of them start their TIs, and then they run into it, and they're like, I had to do what? And it's gonna cost $20,000? Yeah. It becomes a surprise, and it wasn't built into their financing model of how they're gonna move in. So if they're in the anticipation of it, I know we sometimes try to amortize it in their rates. I don't know if some kind of loan program or something. It's just that those huge hits, tens of thousands of dollars to small businesses to get in the door that they didn't anticipate, or even an ADA improvement. They have to put in an elevator or whatever like that. I think that would be more, I take that back because that would be maybe more evident, but somehow an estimation from us to say, looking at this old building, this is the kind of maybe infrastructure in order to do the type of business you want to do. And what does that look like, and how can we help you get there? Because I think a lot of times, oh, the rent's good, I have the X amount of money to do my TIs, and they get in the door and then they're like, oh my gosh, I can't afford to get into, to hook into the water main. I can't afford to bring in more power. I can't afford to do, so anyway, I'm just feeling their pain. I know we're not talking about that, so I'll leave it at that, but just to give a bigger picture to what's going on.
Well, I don't want to leave the person I was talking to had made the good decision to come downtown, and part of that was motivated by the fact that we offer for new businesses coming downtown, a reduced utility rate for a period of time to incentivize it. So there's multiple creative things we can do to be business friendly, and I know that's on our agenda, but I know it's going to continue to be a challenge as you are putting new wine in old bottles downtown. All right. Thank you. Anything else on this?
Does it taste any different?
No. All right, thank you. Next agenda item might be a similar cast of characters, maybe not. Item 4C, and it's not, I'm sorry, is a presentation and discussion on the water resources budget.
Good morning, Mayor, Council. While Seth is getting set up, by the way, Seth Weld is joining me this morning to go over our budget presentation for the Water Resources Department. But I want to start off, if you're interested, just giving an update on that large water main break we had at Gilbert and McKellips.
Thank you.
So that happened late Monday afternoon. It was right in the middle of the intersection, so that was the first thing we were working against. It was 2 pipes. It was a large 12-inch pipe that was running north-south, and it's connected to a 6-inch that's running east-west. But the problem is they don't connect in across on the same horizontal plane. The 12-inch is about 4 or 5 feet deeper than the 6-inch. It's running underneath it. So there's a T and a bend and a valve and a large thrust block, concrete thrust block. So what we had is 2 old pipes. The one pipe is 50 years old, the other is 65 years old. And it was just a clean snap. It was a brittle failure of ACP pipe. So it bust right at that connection point, created a pretty large crater. A lot of water was lost, so there was a lot of cleanup. And crews worked into the night. Unfortunately, it was just going into when we were losing daylight. So because the crater was so deep, it was a large portion of the night into the next day, just trying to clear away mud and debris and to find out where the break was. We did that Tuesday morning, and then, so we had a number of customers out of service, businesses, and a couple residences. So what we decided to do, because it was gonna be a tricky fix, because there was gas, sewer, and fiber optic all in that trench, that we had to be very careful of. So we cut in a new valve on the 6-inch, and we cut in a new valve on the 12, right by the break site, so then we could essentially isolate the intersection and put all customers back in water. So we were able to do that on Tuesday. Yesterday, Wednesday, we spent the better part of the day working on the fixes, and we're doing that again today. We're pouring concrete. Just because of the bends and all the other utilities, we have to pour a large anchor block. We're doing that today, and then that has to cure into the weekend. That concrete has to set up. And then we'll backfill, and we're working with transportation. We've been working with transportation. And Monday morning, they'll come in and they'll saw cut, they'll do clean saw cuts for that area, and then they'll patch that. So by Monday around noonish, everything will be back to normal. And then long-term, they're gonna do a JOC contract to repave the entire intersection. So I know I threw a lot at you, so do you have any questions?
Ms. Pillsbury.
As far as, I was at Signal Butte in 24 yesterday, but I was also at Gilbert and McKellips because, I know, I did a lot of driving yesterday. I got off the 202 at Gilbert and headed south and totally forgot that I had emails saying stay away from that. It was the most atrocious thing. It was, anyways, I got stuck in the parking lot at the EOS gym for like 20 minutes. Anyways, what more could we do to get the word out to people to stay away? Because I mean, I have emails that tell me to stay away from it, and I still just wasn't thinking, because you're a creature of habit and you go the same direction.
Yeah.
And you could just feel the frustration of every single car. I mean, are we talking to the news? Are we putting stuff on the radio?
We put out press releases.
I know there. Yeah,
Here comes Anna.
I mean, and I'm not meaning to even suggest you haven't done a fabulous job on it. Just like, what more can we do, right? Because it's just, no, there was no, and I was gonna suggest that there's just cones that like go like this. So this is Gilbert going south, and they just end at the parking lot. So anyway, I felt like it could have maybe been dealt better with traffic cones and signs, like saying, like until you, maybe, yeah, turn further north instead of going all the way up to the parking lot, because then once you're at the McDonald's parking lot, it was awful.
So we have alerted, Mayor, Council, we have alerted the news media. We're asking the public to stay away, basically letting them know that the intersection is only open for emergency vehicles and local traffic.
Yeah.
So we have been working with the news media, so hopefully that works.
Like
I know
KTAR or radio station?
Yes.
It was on
yes,
there this
actually,
morning.
It was,
yes.
okay.
We worked with KTAR, Kathy McDonald from Water Resources, did an interview with KTAR a couple of days ago, and we're continuing to send alerts. In fact, we sent one this morning, hoping that they would include the traffic update during their morning newscasts.
And then I'm assuming, is it traffic that are putting up the cones and are?
Probably a
is-
contractor, but yeah.
Okay, because I just think that needs to be looked at too, just as far as like where it ends. It was a nightmare. And then also getting out of that parking lot onto McKellips. And again, it would be easier just to have stayed away, but I'm dumb and was thinking of 10 other things and forgot. So for other people, I'm sure have been in the same situation. So I just think if it's gonna still be several days, we need to look a little bit closer at who's putting up the traffic cones and the flow. I don't know, maybe it's your district, it's just right by where I live, so.
Well, hey, I went through there last night and had to divert through the neighborhood.
Well, yeah, so the neighborhood was
But I
better
think,
than the
but
parking
to your
lot.
point, I think that the traffic could be routed on Hermosa Vista
Yeah,
to the west
before you
and then
get to
up
EOS.
Harris. And let people know, instead of going through the shopping center, which is just, there's so much traffic, and it's not safe
Yeah.
to begin with.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I've been through there twice in the last 2 days, but I want to give a shout out to the crews. Obviously, the crews having to work there 24/7, get this under control, putting in the valves and making sure water's to the residential and commercial customers, that's our priority. But also safety to the crews working in those trenches, because I know how difficult and dangerous that is personally. So send that message to your crews. And also, Channel 10 News had it on their news when they do their traffic report. They reported that as well. So not everybody gets the message. I got a phone call from my brother, mad at me this morning for creating this break, and he had to go around. And I go, well, brother, you live right here. You should know this. So
We're going to continue to update on our social media channels, so we'll let you know, and if you can please share with your constituents, that would be great.
well, District 1 did send
Yes.
a news alert out to the district, so a lot of people got that and replied to it,
That's
saying
just
thank
like
you.
such a extremely common exit and entrance to the 202, right? So I mean, that intersection's just a very, very busy one, so. For people who don't live in District 1, I'm saying, yeah.
Julie, I'm curious, the emails you received, were they because you're on council?
Yes, no, that's what I
Yeah.
mean. Like, I'm on council, so we obviously got all of the, like, I think at least 3 emails about it, and to let our residents know. And we posted it on our, I mean, I really, really knew about it, and I still made it all the way to McKellips before I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so dumb. I should have turned at Hermosa Vista or whatever, right? So,
Well, as soon as Kathy McDonald sent out the notice to council, District 1 pushed it out on our
yeah, and
email list.
I think we did too.
So we got the surrounding area covered to some extent, and then I personally sent that same email out to the neighborhood group leadership, letting them know. But regardless, those coming off the freeway, like
Yes.
Ms. Spilsbury,
Yeah, that we don't,
she didn't
yeah.
remember.
Okay.
Yeah, those are good comments. It's worthwhile for me then to go back to our teams and just see how the traffic rerouting is set up, if there's any opportunities there. When it initially happened, our crews, we swarmed the area with our trucks and aero boards just to keep people out of danger. And then not long after that, then the contractor traffic control company comes in, and then they follow standards and set up detours and whatever they need to.
Even if, at that, where Hermosa Vista cuts, and, anyways, like right there, even if there was a sign that said, like, intersection closed ahead, or, something like that, where it was just like really obvious that like, you're not going anywhere on Gilbert. So I don't know, just a little, the actual people driving that maybe haven't seen their social media or whatever.
Yeah, that could, in your situation, so better advanced signing could
Yes.
help, because then it's going to give you a warning before you get too far. Okay, all right, we'll look at that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, you're off to a great start.
I know. Already digging a big hole. All right, let's jump into our first slide, which is our purpose, provide superior water and wastewater services to the community. And then with that, we're going to talk about our priorities and objectives. The first two really go hand in hand, and we'll talk to that with a couple slides. It's bolstering our water portfolio, making those investments, and then meeting customer demand, both current and long-term. Then we look at reliability and efficiency. And finally, we're always striving to ensure that we comply with all regulations. So we're going to start off with a couple of performance metrics. So this first one, it's a 5-year plot. And what we're talking about is the percentage of water that we serve to our customers that comes from groundwater pumping. So our goal on an annual basis is 10%. We want to stay below 10% of the water we deliver to be pumped out of the ground. So by and large, we stay below that, except for you see certain spikes, which you would think would happen in the summer when our demands shoot up. Now we're going to turn on wells, but we actually don't have to do that. We do a good job with our surface water plants meeting demand. Even in the summer, those spikes are intentional. That's when we take plants down for maintenance in the wintertime. So we have a whole plant down, or sometimes 2 plants down, planned out in advance. We have to run groundwater wells just to meet customer demand. So if you look at the next slide, it's the same topic. It gives you a better idea so you can see by fiscal year. So those are those 5 fiscal years. You can see how we've been trending down, which is what we intended, and we're staying in that 8% or less range, and that's where we like to live, right there. So we're doing a good job. We want to continue doing that, keeping our groundwater pumping very low.
I think we got a couple of questions. I know Jen has one, but that 8% figure, 8 or 10%, is that does that add to the aquifer, or does that keep it where it's at? Or I mean, because obviously through multiple sources, we're continuing to add water to the aquifer. But are we taking out in the same proportion, or are we continuing to bank additional? Where does that, is that how you arrived at the 8 or 10% number?
Sure, that's a good question. Actually, our monitoring shows water service levels actually rising because we do a good job refraining from pumping that groundwater. The recharge in, especially the Grusp area, but even getting away from Grusp, we monitor groundwater all the time, and we see levels actually rising. So we're being good stewards of the groundwater, I think is the way to say it.
Thank you. Jen?
Is a related question that we're able to recharge where we take it out, because of the aquifers in that particular area, right? We can recharge in one area, but it doesn't, if we take out from this area, are we able to recharge where we're taking it out?
Sure, Mayor, Council Member Duff. So we have recharged throughout the city along the RWCD canal. We've done that a lot in the past, not as much in past couple decades. It's been lately at Grusp. We're not going to recharge, so around the Signal Butte plant where we're starting to expand our well field, it's just not conducive to groundwater recharge. So a surface basin like at Grusp just wouldn't work. Just because you have to have the subsurface strata that has a lot of gravels and it's permeable. You have that along the Salt River naturally, but you just don't have that in South Mesa.
Too much clay, gets much different.
So we're adding like maybe eight wells in that southeast area, right, to pump? Right. So are those wells, so we're not able to recharge those wells, so as we deplete those wells, then eventually they would not be useful anymore. They would be dry.
Well, it's not a one-way equation, if I can say it that way. There's natural recharge. So as long as we're pumping responsible and not pumping 24/7, and we have a good plan and we keep that to a minimal level, the groundwater level could actually still rise, even though we're not doing intentional recharge there. You have natural recharge and water movement throughout the aquifer. So
So Chris,
most
that
areas,
recharge is taking, that's filling up the aquifer at that location, could be miles away. Could be
yes.
up closer to the superstitions, could be on the benches. Geologically, that water could be flowing in and percolating down, but then moving in this direction, but it could be miles away. So, but we monitor it to make sure we're not drying up the wells. But
Right,
where
we
it
have to.
actually recharges could be completely different area from where we're pulling it out. It's just that that underground aquifer can be moving water from large distances.
Right, the water migrates, and we monitor the surface level of the water table for all our wells. And most places, not just Mesa, but any city where you're pumping groundwater, you're not recharging there. You have very rare isolated areas where you do substantial recharge. It's just natural recharge and the migration of water in the aquifer itself. As long as you're not over pumping, and that's why we have this goal, as long as you're not over pumping, you stabilize the water surface.
I guess geologically, we know where those veins are. Some water is just a pocket, and once it's gone, it's gone. And other ones are being supplied by other forms, maybe upstream, another place, right, and brought in. I assume before we drill a well and spend the money on that we know it's
We do.
refillable?
We just drilled, so part of our planned well expansion, we just drilled a well that's down in the Signal Butte area, and we do what's called pilot well, and we get water quality samples. We measure the yield, how much water we think we're gonna get out of that, and we found one that just didn't meet our expectations. We just cut ties with that well right there and moved our driller to another planned well.
Okay.
So we do test not only for, is it gonna be a good producer, but is the water quality gonna be good? We test for all that.
Okay, yeah, I hate to spend the money on the infrastructure for a short term, as well as, making sure that we're responsible to replenishing. That's how we exist in the desert, right, is replenishing the water that we take out and by putting it back in. Okay, thank you.
Mhm. And then the other metric we wanted to talk about is related. This is the percent of reclaimed water put to beneficial use, where we want to be at 100%. The only time we're going to drop below 100% like we're at now is if GRUSP, that recharge facility, is offline. And it's not necessarily a bad story if GRUSP is offline, because that means we've had really healthy winters here in Arizona. The water table has risen so high, and it's just such that GRUSP really can't be that effective. We just can't take much more. So it's good in that sense. Right now, GRUSP is offline, but as we continue to construct the Central Mesa Reuse Pipeline Project, once that's done, this won't be a problem anymore, because we can have all three of our plants now connected and delivering water to Gila River Indian community. And the nice thing about that exchange agreement, which we've talked about many times, is that even if they have a period where they can't take water from us, we still get credit as if we're delivering that to them, and then we can do something different with it, like take it to GRUSP for recharge. So we can get double credit in those situations. So that's another benefit that we don't talk about that much with the reuse pipeline.
Question, what percentage of our reclaimed water is going to be diverted to that pipeline? Are we going to continue to do recharge through GRUSP and other devices, or will the contribution to the Gila River take most or all of that water?
So right now, about 10 MGD is already going to Gila River Indian community through the exchange agreement from the Southeast plant and the Greenfield plant. And then we're essentially going to double that when the Northwest plant is connected with this pipeline, and we'll have about 20 MGD all going to the Gila River Indian community.
And so how will that impact our ability to recharge?
We have a connection from the influent pump station that's going to be part of the reuse pipeline that's at Thomas and Val Vista. The tank is going to be hydraulically connected with a gravity line right to GRUSP, so that pretty simply, without even a pump station, we can decide to reroute water to GRUSP if we want to. We can even do it at the same time. We can have water go into GRUSP while we're pumping to Gila River, so we have a lot of redundancy and operational flexibility.
So we can, but I mean, do we have the capacity to
What's the volume? What's
meet
the
our
flow?
obligations?
Is there enough flows to cover both?
Well, we don't have a goal at GRUSP. See, that's the thing. It's not like we have a target. We have 540,000 acre foot of long-term storage credits. That's 5.5 years worth of water. It would be, what's more valuable? So it'd be more valuable to send that water to the Gila River Indian community and get that low-cost, high-priority cap water, because what that does is substitutes for the very expensive M&I water. So that's more of a value, given that we have 5.5 years of long-term storage credits. We don't need to keep building that. We will keep building that to some extent, but the exchange agreement is more valuable.
I agree 100%, but I guess I'm still saying, if 5 years from now, if we're diverting all of our reclaimed water to the Gila River, and we just stop doing groundwater recharge with reclaimed water, how's that going to impact us long-term in terms of the aquifer?
We just won't grow our long-term storage credits as fast. So I think it would be a different algebra if we say we only had 1 year of long-term storage credits, but we have 5.5 years. So I think it makes sense for us to slow that pace and then to focus on the exchange agreement.
Okay. Well, the goal obviously is to utilize 100% of our reclaimed water.
Right.
And this will allow us to do that. But right now, we kind of are in a very enviable position when it comes to our groundwater. And I'm just curious to know if that's projected to always be the case, if we continue to divert all or most of our reclaimed water to other uses.
It's something that, it's part of our master planning process. We're just wrapping up our master plan right now. And we continue to update our master plan every 5 years. But for right now, the focus, because we have so much long-term storage credits, more than maybe any Valley City in terms of how many years of storage we have, the focus is really in the near term on the exchange agreement.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
I think to the point, we do have options on our water. And it's, anyway, the Hennessy drain, which we know is broken down because of the flooding on the Salt River. And so SRP and others will be meeting with the participants of the GRUSP here really soon, if you haven't already, and restore that connection so water can be delivered to the GRUSP. But right now, that's not an option to deliver. But I think in the future, our long-term storage credits, like our savings account, we only want to draw them down when we need to. But having them available for
Well, even
use.
to be able to draw it down would be a challenge eventually, too,
Well,
right? So
yeah,
these
we've
other
talked about
options
that.
provide us more efficiency and effectiveness today.
Yeah,
So,
there'll be some water exchanges in the future, I'm sure,
Mm-hmm.
for those long-term storage credits, if we choose that. But anyway, it's a great option we have, and moving that affluent water to the Gila River Indian community, I think, is very vital.
Amen.
Right. Okay.
So good morning. Here you have a look at our fiscal year 22-23 actuals, our current fiscal year budget, our current fiscal year estimate, and our proposed 24-25 budget. My thanks to Brian and the CIP presentation. He kind of queued up my overall theme that inflation and rising costs are a tremendous challenge for us. Not only on the labor side, where we've had to go out and do some industry-specific benchmarks so we can remain competitive in the recruitment market. We've also come up with some key strategies to retain our more experienced senior staff, as well as offer some new hire bonuses and referral bonuses to existing staff. And we've had a positive movement on our recruiting efforts. We are down to a vacancy number we haven't seen over the last 3 years. So we're really encouraged at the moves that we've made. The cost of chemicals continue to be a challenge for us. We are now beginning to see in the commodity markets on the chemicals a unit pricing that is kind of leveled, if not dipped a little bit. But now the challenge is the suppliers are having to pay more money for the qualified drivers and the fuel to deliver the product. So now we're kind of battling that issue. Within our water distribution line item, one of our challenges there, the cost of brass and copper. That is pushing our unit prices up on all of our fittings, our valves. Additionally, our fire hydrants have gone up in price, as well as our pipe. On the water treatment side, part of our estimate for the current fiscal year, the city of Phoenix is also experiencing the same challenges we are. The Bella Vista plan actually exceeded their budget pretty high last year. We're going to have to pay about $1 million this year as part of that settlement. The line item on the reclaimed, there is the water purchases. This is going to continue to be a challenge for us. The unit prices are going up on both flavors of water. Additionally, with the conservation measures that were implemented on the Colorado River, what happened out of that is we have less users of the river water, so those fixed costs are being spread amongst the remaining users. We are looking at about a $1.2 million settlement this year as part of that. On the wastewater side of the house, on the wastewater collection, the one item that is really a challenge on that side, we use ferrous chloride in the system to help control the odors. That price has more than doubled over the last 18 months. And I don't know that we're going to see much relief on that one. The wastewater treatment side, again, the chemical costs are our challenge. The cost of bleach has tripled over the last 18 to 24 months. Cost of our polymers have nearly doubled. If you'll recall, if you have a swimming pool, back when the pandemic started, the cost of chlorine started to climb. We're still battling that increase. This is a summary of our standard baseline adjustments. And so you'll see in the Val Vista Water Treatment Plant, the City of Phoenix has expressed those same concerns on the cost increases, and therefore they've had to increase their budget, and our share of that budget is going to go up $1.4 million next year. On the water chemicals, we feel that we can hold this budget steady. The water quality coming in has been good. The forecast still says it's going to be good. Our treatment efficiencies have proven positive for us, so we feel that we can hold that line item level. On the electric side, we've been battling rate increases there, and based on our current pumping strategy for next year, we need a little bit of an increase. Chris mentioned when he was talking about how we use the groundwater, our plan this year, our two plants are not going to go down for maintenance. We do not have any major maintenance plan this year. So we've had to account for that additional utility usage during that time period when we normally would not. Our water purchases, there is the big number, the big scary number, as some people have said. Our CAP rates continue to climb. There is an increase forecast again for the next year. SRP has also got increases occurring at the same time. 91st Avenue wastewater plant, this is the shared plant with Phoenix, Tempe, Scottsdale, and Glendale. They too are having the same cost pressures. Fortunately, with 5 member cities over there, those increases are a little bit less to each member. Our wastewater chemicals, the bulk of this increase is being driven by the ferrous chloride in the wastewater collection system, as well as the Greenfield plant. We are getting increased flows into the Greenfield plant. Therefore, we're having to use additional chemical. Wastewater electric, same story. The rate increases and then some additional flow into the plant will drive additional usage. Our biosolids removal, the vendor has requested price increases, and they are citing the cost to hire qualified drivers and the cost of fuel to haul the product away. So finally, a good news story. The Greenfield Mesa share. As part of the expansion, Mesa initiated a change or a revision to the billing model for the partners. The original model was really heavily geared toward an ownership percentage, and we initiated the process, and it's now moved more to a flow-based percentage. So now the users of the plant will actually pay their fair share, if you will. So the good news story out of that, Mesa's portion of this plan is actually going to decrease by about $1.6 million. So overall, unfortunately, we're looking at an increase of about $4.3 million next year.
We see some, if you want to look at themes, we're seeing some nice bright spots. Seth had mentioned labor. We're just extending an offer to one of our reclamation plant interns for a permanent operator position, and that's going to complete. It'll bring us fully staffed for reclamation plant operators. That was a huge problem for us a year and a half, 2 years ago. We're making similar headway. We're not fully staffed, but on the water treatment plant operator side, we're making great headway there. We're getting closer to fully staffed. And then other areas, we're seeing a lot of improvement, getting closer to fully staffed. I think we cut our number of vacancies by more than half just in the last year. There's still a couple of areas, some of the skilled trades like electricians, it seems impossible to find electricians, some other areas like that. But there's some real bright spots. So that side of things with the labor, we see a nice improvement there. Some of the chemicals like ferrous chloride, Seth mentioned, those are really expensive still, and those have a pretty robust pace of increase. But we're seeing others really flatten out. And if you look at the jump from last fiscal year to the one we're in, with these standard baseline costs, it's a lot more than this year. So we're seeing some flattening out, and then at least that list of things that are stressors are dwindling. So those are good signs in terms of the budget. Now we're going to talk about just a couple specific requests. You've seen these two, these are feasibility studies. You've seen these in the context of capital improvements. The first one is Bartlett Dam. We have a small one-time cost to participate in the feasibility study for this project that is scheduled to be done, well, it's probably close to a decade from now, just because it is a big project. We talk about raising Bartlett Dam. We're not really raising it. They're actually building a new dam about 1,000 feet downstream. It's going to be about 100 feet taller. It's going to have a much longer crest, and what it's going to result in is a much larger Bartlett Lake. So our participation and our investment in that is buying a share of that water. And it's akin to the NCS water we've talked about that's behind Roosevelt Dam, when Mesa contributed money in the 1990s to raise the dam and get that flood space. It's the same thing for Bartlett. So this is a long-term water portfolio security project for us. And then related to that is what's called the SCIF that's below. Again, it's a feasibility study, and that's hydraulically connecting the Salt River project infrastructure with the CAP canal infrastructure. It's a pump station and pipe that would pump water down below from the Salt River infrastructure up into the CAP canal, which is valuable for us because, as you know, we have 2 water treatment plants that sit right on the CAP canal, Brown Road and Signal Butte. And those plants would take the NCS water and then this expanded Bartlett Dam flood water. It would take all of that directly. Right now, when we get NCS water, we have to let it go through the SRP canal all the way to Val Vista, treat it there, and then take it and pump it all the way back east. So we're doing that now, but the SCIF will be more of a shortcut, and it'll boost our efficiency. And next, I wanted to talk about.
I'm sorry, I think
Sure.
Mustafa has a question.
Yeah. Chris, are other cities also contributing to the cost of these studies? Or to
Yes, for both Bartlett and the SRP, there's multiple stakeholders, double-digit stakeholders for both of these.
Okay, great. And they haven't started yet, right? So we're just at the inception of employing these studies? and
Correct. So
groups.
these 2 requests are just for the feasibility study.
But Bartlett's been going on for how long?
Oh, a couple of years.
Yeah.
There's a conceptual design.
It didn't
we toured
just
it.
start. I
Okay.
mean, we kicked this off at least a couple of years ago.
So work has been going on, because we've been talking about it, but, so,
Yeah, they have to work with the federal government and a lot of
okay.
it.
But we're in the position now to do the feasibility, we're starting the feasibility.
Yes, it's part of the federal
Setting
process, so
Okay.
there's already a conceptual plan. We know where the dam is located. We know all those specifics. We know rough costs. Some of the environmental stuff is already underway, but it's just part of the federal process that you have to do a feasibility study, and then that leads into the EIS process.
Assuming all goes well with that, is there a estimated timeline that we would be able to exercise taking these measures?
To actually have the reservoir expanded and be able
Yeah,
to
to actually do
retrieve.
the construction of the dam, or,
The final project is scheduled to be complete. Last I saw, it's around 2034, so about 10 years. Just a long federal process.
all right, thank you.
The SCIF project you described, that's exclusively City of Mesa, correct?
No, that's SRP, and we're, as one of the SRP customers, and there's other customers that are also participating in this. So it's not Mesa, it's multiple
But
cities.
this is taking SRP water to the Signal Butte plant, right?
Essentially, yes, because it's pumping it up into the CAP canal, which
Yeah.
goes by Brown Road and
We
Signal
pulled
Butte.
the water out of the CAP.
So we'd be the only beneficiary of that, even though.
Well, no, Chandler would be a beneficiary of that, Gilbert as well.
So it's not taking water exclusively to our Signal Butte plant?
That's correct, Mayor,
Okay.
right.
All right, thank you.
This request is on the wastewater side, so at the very end of the water reclamation process, it's all about solids handling. So the scroll, it's in that piece of equipment you see, that green housing. The scroll is actually inside of there. It's really just that final dewatering, squeezing out all that valuable water and conditioning the solids so that it can be hauled off and disposed of. But this equipment, it's run very hard. It's run 24/7, and it's in a very corrosive environment. So we're constantly, it's just something you have to maintain and replace on some regular basis.
In our final request, as I mentioned earlier, with the cost of brass, copper, hydrants, pipe, everything going up, we're fortunate that our partners in the warehouse actually stock those items for us. And so we withdraw it out of the warehouse when we actually need it. But because of those unit costs going up, it's been an impact to our budget. And we have not made an adjustment to this budget since fiscal year 18-19. So what we're asking for is to increase.
I'm sorry, did you say 1819?
18-19.
Not the year
Not-
1819,
okay.
fiscal year 18.
Oh, sorry.
2018,
Sorry.
2019.
We weren't even a city then.
All right, okay.
Pause in there.
The ho-ho-cams did what?
18/19.
Fiscal year 18-19.
Okay, I'm with you now, sorry.
My apologies.
No, my apologies, I'm sorry.
So we are requesting an increase of $380,000 to that baseline item moving forward so that we're assured that we've got the budget capacity to get the items that we need to do the maintenance and repairs on the system. So in summary, those 4 items total $296,381 in one-time costs and $380,000 in an ongoing cost.
And then as we wrap up, and certainly can take questions, but we thought we'd mention next week, or actually April 22nd through the 25th, Arizona Water Professionals Week. But as I've been talking to a lot of colleagues, it seems like April has a week for everything, so I don't feel so special anymore.
Yeah, that's true.
Julie, can you do like an Easter egg thing for them? All right.
Yeah. So with that, we'll take any final questions
Great.
you have.
Thank you, council. Any additional questions? All right, well, I want you to know here every week is Water Professionals Appreciation.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know how we're going to differentiate it. Thank you very much.
Makes us feel better. Thank you.
You bet. All right, item 4D is a presentation and discussion on the solid waste budget. And
Mayor, do you need a 5-minute break, or are you guys good?
Yes, I'm sorry, thank you. Let's do exactly that. This is the last thing on our agenda, so I don't think we need a long break. So let's meet back 9:37. Thank you. Well, welcome back. Next item on our agenda, item 4D, is a presentation and discussion on the solid waste budget and an update on recycling. Welcome. We're anxious to hear both of those topics.
Okay, great. Well, good morning. My name is Sherry Collins. I'm the Solid Waste Director, and with me today I have Joe Jadis. He's the Deputy Director for Solid Waste, and Justin Statt. He's our Senior Fiscal Analyst.
Great.
So we'll go ahead and get started with our public purpose. Solid waste public purpose is to protect public health and the environment by ensuring the sanitary handling of solid waste to keep our community clean, safe, and welcoming. And I just want to pause for a moment and take the time to thank all the men and women in our department who work so hard every day and put forth so much effort to make sure that we can meet this public purpose. And I also want to make sure that I thank the Fleet Services Department. The Fleet Services Department men and women also work very hard to make sure that we can meet this public purpose. So I just want to make sure to give a shout out to them and say thank you. And now we're going to move on to our priorities and objectives. So solid waste is a utility. Infrastructure is very important building block for any utility, and solid waste is the same. So we really want to continue to focus on safe and reliable infrastructure and trucks, working very closely with Fleet Services to make sure that our trucks are up and running and safe for the road. The next thing that we're focusing on is employee investment. In our organization, we have a lot of mid-level management that move up from field positions, and it's really important that we give them the right training so that they can become great leaders. And so we're just going to focus on that. And then we also need to continue to focus on industry knowledge and make sure that we're up to date on the most current practices, and so that we can be the best we can be. And then in addition to that, we're working on an apprenticeship program, which we're pretty excited about. We're in the beginning stages of it, trying to create it, but basically it would be an apprentice program where somebody could come in and join the apprentice program, whether it's internal or external, and they could get the certifications and hours and get their CDL so that they can move up through the organization and become an equipment operator too. The next focus that we have is long-term materials management. It's very important for us. Solid waste is at the end of our 10-year landfill disposal contracts, which will be coming up in September, so it'll be for next fiscal year. So we're just continue to work on that so that we can make sure to secure the best contracts we can for the city of Mesa. Again, we're in works on that. We'll be coming back to you whenever we finalize those, but we just need to continue to make sure to work on that. And then also the other thing that we need to continue to work on is the design of our MRF. So we continue that with the town of Gilbert. We're continuing to work on that design. Material recovery facility. Thank you. And then lastly, we're focusing on modernization. Solid waste is more than a truck and a barrel. It has come so far in the last decade and definitely the last 20 years. So just really working on modernization. They touched on it a little bit in the last presentation. Justin will talk about it a little bit, but we're working on a tablet project next fiscal year where we implement tablets into our system. So to modernize that and make our operation very efficient. So, okay, now we'll move on to a performance measure that I want to highlight. And I'd like to just highlight the performance measure for our household hazardous materials facility. We call it our HHM facility. It's a crown jewel of Mesa. It's very popular. People love it. Mike Baez, a shout out to him. He runs it. He does a phenomenal job. And we just continue to see that facility be popular. We're very proud of it. And last month was a record month. It's just getting more and more popular. We did not advertise it anymore or anything like that. So we realized that. And so last year we were able to secure moving contract dollars to permanent employee dollars to make our HHM facility more efficient, more reliable staffing, and that's been very beneficial. So what we did in preparation to see how we could maybe expand what HHM does is we put a survey out. We got about 750 responses, which we were pretty proud of. And basically we gave them a couple options. We said, would you like Tuesday by appointment, adding 2 more hours per day that were open Wednesday through Saturday? Is there something else that you might want? It was overwhelming that 2 hours per day was something that the people who took the survey felt would help them better so they could have even more access to the facility or access. Some of them, the survey respondents didn't use the facility and some of them did. And then just a very small percentage said something other, and that other was maybe the Tuesday by appointment or evening hours or maybe Saturday. So what we're working on for next year is adding 2 hours per day, Wednesday through Saturday. And just to give you an idea, currently we're open Wednesday through Saturday, 7 to noon. So we're looking at expanding that to 7 to 2, which would take care of kind of that full day, especially on Saturday. It's almost a full day. But we'll go ahead and continue to monitor that to make sure that adding these 2 hours achieves the results we intended to achieve all Wednesday through Saturday. And we're putting our resources in the right area because we want to see the increased participation by adding those 2 hours.
Before you move off with that, I agree with you. This is a crown jewel, but it's only, you can only use it when it's open, right? And so is there, I know right now there's a lot of service. I mean, when you pull up, you're dealing, someone is helping you and they're saying, yes, we can take that. Sorry, we can't take that. And I mean, it's like Chick-fil-A. I mean, it's great. But is there a way to make it more accessible? I mean, to broaden the hours. I mean, if I have a bunch of bad paint or, some insecticides and I know, well, that's my question. Can you, it seems kind of creepy that I could just come out and put, hazardous materials on a sidewalk somewhere and drive away. But is there a way we could accomplish something like that because the hours are so limited?
Mayor, council, I think it's a risk to leave materials out like that, especially if you're leaving hazardous materials out like that. And, you have to be really careful with how you store them, how you mix them, things like that. So I think it would be a risk at this point. Certainly we could look into any possibility like that, but I will caution that it would be a risk to leave those out.
It's obviously, I mean, it's just intuitively problematic that you're going to take things that you need to be careful with and not have them under some sort of control. But at the same time, I wish our hours were more than, I appreciate the additional hours, but it's still, what happens if it's a Sunday or it's a Monday or a Tuesday and that's when I'm freed and that's when I'm cleaning my garage? I wish we could accommodate that.
If Saturday were good, I think the challenge to mayors, remember this is for Mesa residents, because they're through their utility bill, they're paying for this.
So you have to verify that you are eligible to
Yeah, it's not just open. I mean, that's the other part. We're afraid we'd get people from
Sure.
anywhere else. And again, this is driven, this is supported by the fee on the utility bill. So that's why we're trying to be very careful about being strategic about the hours and the days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a fair point.
It's a nice problem to have that that we have a great service and we're trying to make it more accessible to people, but.
Someday, I mean, this is working very well. I think the other part of this is it's on one far end of the city.
Right.
So
Yes.
someday, it'd be nice to diversify this in other parts of the city too. So, but that's,
Do
so-
we track where most people come from? Probably not, huh? Oh, I guess we could if they have to
Oh, yeah, you do.
show.
They
We
take
do.
your driver's
So-
license.
Do you have that information?
Yeah, we do because, yes, correct, Mayor.
I was there twice last week.
Mayor, council members, yes, we do. We have an app, we worked with IT to have a tablet out there, and so we track every zip code, so we do know where the waste is coming from.
So it seems like if we're doing the MRF and the other side of Mesa, could we co-locate one of these there as well?
It's a lot of big trucks going in and out of that
Yeah,
area.
Okay.
Yeah, Mayor, council members, I'm not going to say definitively no. What I'm going to tell you is that the space, while it appears large, is actually, once you put a MRF on there, there's a lot of queuing with the big trucks. There's a lot of bale storage, then you have to have the big trucks come in, even bigger trucks come in to truck the material out, and so it gets very tight.
The MRF is not for the public, right? I mean,
No,
yeah,
this is
okay.
Correct.
bulk.
Even though it's recycling, it's not.
This is the sorting of, we bring that down, it gets sorted out. And
Okay.
Correct.
Yeah, you're right. Not the best place to do that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, we're way off topic. Can you go
okay.
back to where you're at?
I like talking about my crown jewel. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to the next part of our presentation, and Justin's going to cover that for you.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. This slide here shows our expenditures. The right-hand column here is our proposed budget for next year. As you can see, there are some changes between our revised budget and our proposed budget here. They're between two of our big cost centers. The first one is our fleet costs. We're expecting about another $1.5 million in fleet cost for next year. We're thinking this is a one-time increase. But the other item that we're anticipating going up, as Sherry mentioned earlier, our landfill contracts are set to expire in the fall, and we'll be coming back to you then to discuss that in further detail. But we're currently anticipating about another $3 million in landfill costs to be incurred starting next year.
I have a question before are you going to the next slide?
No, go for it.
On the household hazardous waste, which we just spoke about, and expanding the hours, I noticed the proposed budget is really a dramatic fall. But it's, I don't know, it's up and down.
Mayor, Council, that's a great question. This line we call, this is a self-sustaining line is what I would call it. We charge a fee every month to pay for this. So those fluctuations you see there, that's just us tracking our balance there. We do have ongoing recurring costs, but we also budget for repairs, one-time costs that the facility might need. Especially last year, we did have some drainage projects as well as a remodel rebuild in there. So those numbers look like they fluctuate, but they do, at the end of the budget cycle, kind of stay the same. Okay, up next are our tablet project. We've had it mentioned a couple times so far. How we started this was we did a 9-month pilot with an outside vendor working closely with our IT department as well as our purchasing department. This basically puts us into the modern age for routing. The big 3 items I'd like to discuss here is basically the first is our digitization of routes. We currently use literally paper to travel every single road in the city.
Talk about what is it they have with them when they have to do this today?
So they currently have a binder that is just pieces of paper that says go left, go right, go straight, stop here.
That's what they're carrying in the truck
In the
with them
truck.
on all the routes.
Do the routes change often? Seriously?
No, but the drivers may change and go to a different route.
And
So,
Okay.
Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, the routes don't change often, but I think it's really important to understand that the services change. So when customers move, especially on the commercial side, we have gains and losses. And so with that paper routing, it's very time consuming to go in to update all those books. And then for new residential services, that's when it'll change, when we have new developments come on board. And just keeping up with that massive amount of paper every time we get one barrel or one green barrel turns on, one green barrel turns off. So the actual routes don't change that much, but I would say the service levels with the containers do.
and you may, it's just the challenges of having equipment available, fleet available to do these routes. Sometimes somebody's in a truck I mean, it's a completely different truck and driver sometimes, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And so I think that's a fair point too, Mr. Brady, thank you, is that, you know, if, with these tablets, they'll be able to do real-time routing and give turn-by-turn directions. Right now, it's a piece of paper. So if you're on a route and you know it, it's great. But if, like you said, if we have to pivot, it's very hard and it's very time-consuming for them to try to stop and read that piece of paper and try to follow those arrows. And so this will give them some digital with turn-by-turn, any route.
It's like Yahoo Maps.
Yeah.
Print out.
Well, I mean, you know some of these subdivisions, you know, we've all driven in, and they wind around and just not missing a cul-de-sac or a corner, and which is the most, and I think the other thing you guys have done too, you spend a lot of time creating efficient routing too.
Correct.
So it's not just like where to go, but it's like the most efficient way to get around in some of these neighborhoods, right?
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
And Mayor, Councilmember, go forth, Mr. Brady. So the other thing is with that, one of the issues that we have, like he said, missing cul-de-sacs, is if we do have a truck breakdown, to try to figure out where that person is just a lot of back and forth, pictures of a map that maybe has a finger, you know, that we're trying to show them where they are. This system will allow us to say, we know exactly where you are, we know exactly what was serviced, everything changed to green saying it was serviced and good to go. And we have foremen on the back end that'll be able to just then basically what we call lasso. They'll be able to lasso the ones that aren't and just ship it right to their tablet. So there's no back and forth, there's no guessing on what's been serviced or not. And so I think I do know that will be very efficient for us and helpful.
So is it going to increase, I mean, like, what do you measure for that? Is it not barrels missed or, you know, shorter amount of time, more to pick up because you're more efficient? I don't know. How do you measure this?
So we would measure it in multiple ways, right? We would measure time on route, we would measure misses, exactly. We would measure, I'm trying to think, Justin, we would measure, what are some of the other measurements?
The two big ones are miles and time on route. Additionally, it's the last bullet point here, but service verification right now, as I mentioned before, they have a map, so they might forget which road they drove down at one point. This would allow them to actually look at the tablet, which is an iPad mini, go see what roads I've actually driven down, and then that way they know before they leave, maybe from Eastmark to come all the way back to the yard, oh, I have serviced all my routes. That's one big issue we have right now. We call them go-backs, is if you miss a route all the way in East Mesa, that's an hour each way just to get there. So not only time and distance, but it saves on all sorts of costs related to our operation.
Well, I'm just going to add that I think efficiency and time, labor time, might be overtime involved, you know, fuel time, you know, all those times to be more efficient. I'm surprised this hasn't been done years ago. I mean, welcome to the digital age, I guess.
Thank you.
But AI safety, I think, is very important for the customer and for the driver. So knowing where the breakdown happened, let's just say, or whatever happened, and then send another truck to finish the route, saves time and money, and I think helps with employee morale.
Thank you.
Do we have any measurements within the truck as far as the tonnage that you're picking up to know if that route was a full load or maybe over, you know, so that would be in part of the mapping for your routing?
Yes, Mayor, Councilmember Duff. Today, we have onboard scales, which will tell us the weight of the truck, so they'll know legal weight, right?
Okay.
And then we have a piece of paper that we take a pen or a pencil and we handwrite everything down on it.
Awesome.
So the other thing that this offers that we don't have up there that we've been working really closely with Fleet on is a lot of telematics also. So in addition to this, I know I'm going into the weeds, but in addition to this, Fleet is excited about it because instead of sending a technician out, they're able to diagnose it from the computer. So it saves a lot of mechanic hours as well. So Mr. Freeman, to your point, you know, it saves not only in solid waste time, but it also saves efficiency for Fleet. So this will have, and Justin, maybe you can talk about a little bit more what the tonnage will look like on this whenever we collect it, and it'll be, we'll be able to take pictures of it and fill it out on the tablet, right?
Yeah, that's the other amazing part about this tablet is obviously you can use any of the cameras that we have within the cab or on the tablet itself, documenting issues as far as maybe this is overloaded, this is blocked, that's why we can't service you. We deal a lot with that now where somebody calls in and says, you didn't service my barrel, well, we have a picture of it either not there or blocked as well.
Yeah, that's good. our sister city, Burnaby, Canada, BC, is visiting, and I had dinner last night and talking to some of the people there. They're using a lot of AI for their solid waste, so while they're here a couple more days, it'd be interesting to share a little bit. Thanks.
Yep, thank you.
And just lastly, we noted the costs here. The one-time costs you see down below are basically the hardware and the actual purchasing of the iPads that get mounted to the dashboard. And then our ongoing costs are basically the subscription fees that are required, as well as any sort of support that the vendor may provide for efficient routing or what have you.
All right. Well, good morning, Mayor and Council. I get the pleasure of updating you on our recycling programs and services. So I'll start with kind of our future, which is the MRF planning project. We're recycling facility, materials recovery facility. So if I say MRF, apologies. Project that we're working on. So this is a partnership with the town of Gilbert and the city of Mesa, where we have hired a design engineering firm to develop a preliminary design for a recycling facility at Pecos and Sossaman on City of Mesa-owned land. I'm happy to report that the project is coming along very well, and we're on target for an August of 2024 preliminary design completion. We also got a good shot in the arm last fall in October when Republic Services was able to reopen their MRF at the Salt River landfill location. And so that helped us a lot because prior to the reopening of that facility, we were really only able to get about 30% of the recycling that we collected to a recycling facility for actual processing. But with the reopening of that facility, we're now able to get 70% of our recyclables to our recycling facility. And we continue, of course, to look at ways to get all of our recycling to a facility. We'll continue to explore those opportunities at every opportunity we can.
Before you leave that number, and I know Jen has a question, our climate action plan goal is reduce or divert 90% of what's currently going to the landfill. And so this obviously seems like that will really the biggest and best way for us to make progress on that goal. Can you talk a little bit about that and what else can we do if we're going to take seriously this goal of diverting 90% by 2050?
Mayor, council members, yes, this is in support of getting 90% of our materials diverted by 2050. I will tell you that that is a very lofty goal, and it's going to take a great deal of effort. Yes, this will get some of it there. To give you an idea, it's about if we got 100% of our Blue Barrel containers to a MRF, it would be about 10% of the total material we collect. So we still have to find a home for 80% of the rest of the material, and so that's just something we're going to have to work very hard on over the next several years.
Wow. So I didn't realize it was only 10% would be impacted by recyclables. All right. Well, we got to get really innovative then.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I'm sorry, Jen.
Yeah. Okay, so right now we're at a 70% with Republic Services, right? Okay. So with the MRF, what are our goals as far as what we're going to achieve in recycling or reuse of materials?
Mayor, Councilmember Duff, are you speaking of the
Are we
MRF?
going to take some of that business and put it there? Because we will be the intermediary instead of them, right?
At Pecos and Sossaman?
Yeah.
We build our
Or
own?
is it just because of the location? Because Republic Services is north on our city, this is south. What's the total picture when that gets online?
So whenever that gets online, our goal is to recycle 100% of the material that we collect in our Blue Barrels. We have talked in the past a little bit about continuing private partnerships where it makes logistics sense for our operation. Right now, and financial and logistics sense for us. And so if we build the MRF on Pecos and Sossaman, it would also require a transfer station at East Mesa Service Center. So that would be able to get us material transported down south. So, and again, like I said, we would continue to work with private partners as long as it made financial and logistics sense. But the goal is to have 100% recycled once we open a MRF.
Okay, and so that we'll be bringing recycling there, as well as Gilbert has their goals to bring their recycling in there as well, right?
Correct.
Are they recycling now?
Yes, they are,
Oh, okay.
with Republic
All right.
Services.
All right. But I assume we have some efficiencies since we'll be taking it to market instead of using an intermediary.
Yes, and what that would look like is we would most likely hire a third party to run it. We would hire another
Okay.
party to actually run and operate the
Run.
MRF. It's like the Phoenix model. They're experts in marketing. We're not experts in marketing, so it really is beneficial to the municipality to have somebody who's an expert in that field do that.
Okay.
But yes, we would see a benefit from that as well.
Okay. And then, are we designing for any circular economy opportunities around that?
Mayor, Councilmember Duff, we have discussed that. So there is a rail line that goes through that, and we have been working on that, and it's actually a spur already. So a spur doesn't need to be constructed. So we have looked into that a little bit. There is a south side of the material that would be, that is open for marketing companies such as that. That would
Okay,
be
that we
interested in
could
being
And
located.
this-
Invite
There's
and
land,
attract.
so
Oh, there's land.
the rail kind of diagonally
It's-
splits the land. We need every inch on the north side.
Correct.
But then there's no development plan for the south
yeah.
side, so that would be an opportunity.
So we could invite
Right.
vendors
Down
and
the
manufacturers to use a lot of that material. We could just cross
Yeah, and
over
maybe
the
the
rail line
vendor
and make
that would
products.
take this on, maybe they would see that as an opportunity, right? Because they're going to have the relationships.
Right.
With the, I don't know what you call them, aftermarket, I don't know what the market's for the
Yeah.
commodity. And that's, so, yeah, so we're going to keep that available, so that could be an opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's a great way to reduce our costs too, right? That we're not transporting.
Well, the goal is to try
the
to create
transportation.
to support the market for the recyclables, right? So that there's value and make it convenient and accessible. So whether it's cardboard or paper, if somebody can have a facility that helps them gather that up quicker, then our goal is to get as much for our recycling as possible or reduce the cost. So yeah, anything like that can help.
Yeah, great.
And save the planet.
Oh, yes.
On transportation.
I'm sorry, can you clarify? So once this is online, nothing will go to Republic? We will not, or we continue that partnership?
Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, at this time, I'm not going to say nothing definitively. I think what we would need to do as an organization is to make sure that it makes financial and logistic sense.
We'll have
So-
options.
But it
Yep.
will have capacity to, this new facility will have capacity to take everything? Okay.
Correct.
And
It's-
then-
It's being built, I'm sorry.
Go
It's
ahead.
being built at a capacity to take Gilbert and Mesa's tonnage on a single shift.
Okay.
So if there were options to expand in the future, you would add a second shift.
But we would still have to evaluate the transportation, the
Correct.
distances.
for
So,
sure.
but until we get, know what it's going to cost, what our operator's going to look like, but we'll have options.
So I was under understanding that our recycling went down to 30% for a couple of reasons, because Republic went offline as well as the aftermarket had plummeted, right? There was no purchasing of has that recovered?
So, Mayor, Councilmember Goforth, our recycling went down to 30%. We had a contract that was canceled. The Republic MRF burned down. There was only one very small recycling company that still took our recycling, and their capacity at that facility could only handle 30%. And logistically for us as well, we can't, with the amount of equipment we have to make sure logistics makes sense too. And so we were able to get 30% there. Once Republic came back online, that facility closed down. And so that vendor no longer accepted commingled, so now we just had Republic services. The recycling market throughout the years, it definitely goes up and down, and it's typically like this. Right now, the recycling market, yes, it's doing okay. So, we get as much as we can there. Last month, even with all the challenges we're having, we were still able to get 73% of the material we collected up to the MRF at Republic. So we're still meeting that 70%, and we're doing everything we can operationally to get as much as we can there.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
I can ask one more question. I know it kind of relates to the next slide. First of all, on the land south of the rail for a circular economy opportunity, how many acres is that approximately in the ballpark?
How many is on the top end? What did you got? What are you looking at?
I want to say it's about 40. Am I right?
I was thinking half of that. I was thinking 20.
40 total, so.
Yeah, so
about 20.
it's, I wouldn't say it's
Oh.
exactly a split, but the way the rail came through,
Yeah.
it almost diagonally split everything in
Oh,
half.
so
So
it's about
roughly
half.
about 20,
Okay,
if it's 40 total.
That's significant.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a
Okay.
big swath of land out there.
And then related to the next slide is, how are we doing on our contamination rates? We really, during this time that we didn't have recycling fully available to us, we took the cleanest most opportunistic materials and to reduce the contamination, so we have the greatest opportunity to, are we doing well? Is everybody, we're doing, contamination, a lot of people think, oh, I'm recycling, it's fine, but they're throwing in the peanut butter jar, there's, no, it's not working.
Yeah, so Mayor, Councilmember Duff, so we, with everything that's happened the last few years, our most recent audit was around, I think 13% or something like that. But over the years that I've had an experience, it has gone anywhere from 8 to 20%. And so it just depends on the grab that they get. If you have a case of bottled water that still has the water in it, it's very heavy, it's gonna throw that contamination percentage out the roof. So it really depends, and you have to really be on top of it when the vendors are doing these audits. We don't have a recent audit, but I can just tell you it varies between 8 and 20%.
How does a bottle of water that's not emptied, literally doesn't contaminate it, but as far as the audits, it skews it? Is that what you're saying, or is it considered a contamination?
It's considered a contamination because it still has all the liquid in it and the water in it. And so it's considered a contamination, it's very heavy. And it just, like I said, it just depends on the grab that they get, you know. And if it's not the bottle of water, maybe it's a grab of a bad piece of the recycled that's on the floor, you know.
Not to, especially in public events and such like that, where there's not an opportunity to empty that bottle of water before you throw it in the recycling. Take it outside to the bathroom. Empty the bottle of water, right?
Right.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so one of the other great advantages of Republic Services reopening, they've invested in some really good new equipment there, and I know some of you had an opportunity to go see the facility. So with that, gives us the opportunity to rebrand our recycling program. And so getting at the idea of getting more diversion out of the landfill to the recycling, this is another way of being able to accomplish that. So in addition to our traditional, cans and cardboard and glass, in particular in the paper and plastic area, we're able to add some items. So what's commonly referred to as paper boards, so things like cereal boxes, tissue boxes, we can now put those back in our container. And then on the plastic side, there's a lot that's still happening in the plastics world. So things like shampoo bottles, laundry detergent bottles, we can get those back into our program, as well as there's a kind of a developing market for a plastic called polypropylene. Yogurt cups, Arizona iced tea containers are made from them. More plastic manufacturers are manufacturing with that type of plastic. More recyclers are recycling that type of plastic. At the new facility, they installed particular machinery that can actually sort that, and so we're able to add that plastic into our program. So we're excited about that. The visual representation you're looking at here is the type of branding we've kind of come up with. This has been nationally very successful in achieving kind of the goals of reducing contamination, simplicity for viewers, and clear understanding for residents on what to recycle and what not to recycle.
This is the actual flyer, whatever you're
yeah,
saying now.
this would be an example of our branding flyer, yes.
Great.
How new is this? I mean, because I'm looking at Anna, I think we need to push this out, because this is news to me. I've gotten into the habit now of not putting some of these things in recycling, and I'm excited to do it again, but how are we gonna get this message out to people?
So Mayor Giles, it's new as of 10:11 a.m. this morning.
Oh.
So we're just presenting it to you today on what we're working on. And then Joe's going to go over some of the outreach that we're going to do.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just make one suggestion on this graphic? I think we still have people that don't clean out some of these things. If we could maybe highlight the word clean, I don't know. Because I think it doesn't, I think people will just read over that, just see glass and cardboard and think, great. I don't know, just a suggestion.
No, appreciate the feedback, thank you.
So cereal boxes, yeah, lots of debates about cereal boxes. The plastic inside a cereal box, do you have to separate that? You can just throw it in, or do you need to
You should throw that out.
So that plastic you would throw away and just put the box smash down any, okay. That's always been a question.
It does say empty. I don't know if that meant.
Technically, any film plastic, grocery bags, your dry cleaner bags, even something like that, you can take back to the grocery store through their collection
Yes,
programs,
but not in the.
but not in the normal recycling process.
Yes.
It gums up the equipment.
And yeah, I was gonna say, those bags are what causes all the problems, right? Yeah.
Okay, here's the test. Pizza boxes.
No.
No.
Not with the
It
cheese.
says
Don't go there.
clean and flat cardboard, and a pizza box by definition is
Just 'cause it's
greasy and
contaminated,
not
yeah.
clean. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean,
That's what I'm hearing you saying.
the simple answer would be, if there's grease on it, it's not recyclable. If
Okay.
it's not greasy, go ahead. For some people that really want to recycle, I say if the lid is not greasy and you want to rip the lid off and put that in the recycling cart, go right ahead if that makes you feel better. But if there's grease contaminating that, it really is not recyclable.
Okay, see, I think we need to have I can see some fun videos going out from the city.
Yes.
You know, right?
Amazon boxes?
Oh, yeah.
If there's like a backside to this graphic and you can put more of that information, I would do it. I think people are always asking, just like Julie's question, that was pretty specific, right? If you can, I don't know, if there's room for the fine print somewhere, might be helpful.
Yeah, and we do have, Mayor and Councilmember Goforth, we do have a Recycle Right Wizard a media platform that we use that really helps people, like, they can type in anything, is it recyclable, what do I do? It gives them that kind of guidance, so we can certainly highlight that as well.
Interesting. So I just put the flyer on my cabinet, old school paper thing. That's why I keep saying that, but using technology is better. I know.
No. Yes. Anyway.
Okay, so in terms of outreach efforts for our 10/11 announcement today at 10 a.m., we're going to take kind of an all-hands-on-deck approach, working to do media, social media, mailers. Partnerships will be big, like with Mesa Public Schools and even with Republic Services, community engagement opportunities, just tabling at events and kind of announcing these changes. So we'll kind of do a little bit of everything to make sure we're getting the word out. And I think part of it is also repetition of the message too. It won't just be a one-time thing. We'll just have to continue to repeat the message. Okay. And now I get to also share with you some exciting news that City of Mesa was awarded a grant from the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality for $135,000 and some change for implementation of a downtown Mesa recycling initiative. So I should point out, I served on the committee that awarded these grants. I did not review the Mesa proposal. I had to recuse myself, but there were 61 very competitive grant proposals. So Mesa did a really outstanding job in being awarded. It was a total of $1 million available. So over 10% of the award, 13%, right, of the award amount to Mesa. So this is kind of a three-legged approach that Mesa's proposing for this downtown recycling initiative. It's adding public space recycling, so you'll see some bins on that image that Ms. Collins took when she was in Burnaby for Sister Cities Exchange last year. That kind of represents maybe what some public space recycling in downtown and select locations might look like. It also includes city venue recycling, so the convention center, arts and culture facilities in downtown. And then the third piece is adding a commingled commercial recycling program where multifamily properties in downtown, such as Eco Mesa, as well as businesses in downtown, would now be able to participate in a commingled recycling program. So we're really excited about being able to launch this, demonstrating its success, and maybe growing the program in the future. And with that, I'll turn it back to Director Collins.
Thank you. Just one more thing on this grant thing, just to be clear, for the city venue, it's the Mesa Amphitheater, not the Arts Center, and the Convention Center. So I just wanted to be, those are the two venues for this grant for city venue. And with that, this is actually our last slide. So are there any questions?
Great, thank you. Council, other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, item 5 is to acknowledge receipt of various boards and committee minutes. Is there a motion to that effect? Thank you, Ms. Pillsbury, seconded by Mr. Freeman. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. That passes unanimously. Next is current events and conferences attended. Council members, anything you'd like to share with us?
We always start with Julie.
I know, I don't know how that happened, but I'll start.
It's a nice tradition. We start with Julie.
Okay, let's see. Last Thursday was the couple of events, the Azura Veteran Resource Center ribbon cutting with the chamber over here, a new space that is going to be really great for our veterans. And then Lokahi had their carnival that most of us were at to kick that off, that benefiting kids in our city and with sports and anyways, I could say a lot more about that, but appreciate them doing that in our city. Friday, I attended a grand opening for Inland Kenworth over off of Valley Auto Road, Greenfield and Baseline area. They sell and service heavy truck and equipment. They're the largest distributor of Swift. Anyways, huge organization. They're out of Canada. That's exciting to have that in the East Valley. On Saturday, I was part of a dignitary panel for a Teen Gauge event is what it was called. Sasha Reveron is in District 6 and she is Miss Juneteenth, and she put together this event. It was in Chandler, so it was with a lot of Chandler Mayor and City Council members and then Judge Sears from Mesa. And that was really great to answer questions about civic service and city government and being involved in the community. And then I just wanted to mention on Tuesday was my district's general obligation bond meeting. I don't think we had the best attendance, but I appreciate the staff coming out and putting all of their resources and efforts into making sure that our community is aware of the potential bond projects, even if you don't get the best turnout. I'm assuming most of my district's just doing it online. So. But I appreciate the effort that has gone into those meetings to really just help the community understand what we are potentially wanting to do for this fall for our bond election. So thank you to everyone that participated in that.
Thank you. Alicia.
I just have one thing. I just wanted to give a shout out to Justin Hart. He is part of the Mesa Leadership Program and is shadowing me today. So welcome. Glad to have you and hope you learned something today.
Good or bad?
Yeah, I know. This was a long one. So anyway, glad you're here.
Thank you. Jen.
Last Thursday, I did have my district bond community meeting at the Post. It was well attended. It helps to have, you know, bars and food next door, I guess. It's off the yard. Ice cream, and being in the middle of the community, it was well attended. Thank you to all the staff for hosting that outreach. And on Friday, I attended half of the Arizona Biking Summit at the Mesa Convention Center, learning how we can be a better biking community in Mesa. On Saturday, I attended the Project Lit reception. Project Lit is a project out of the Mesa Arts Center for youth and spoken word. So we had a reception and there was a performance afterwards. Yesterday and today, I'm spending time with Burnaby, British Columbia, Canada, our sister city. They're here visiting. We have an entourage of, I think, around 13 people. And so yesterday we talked about, they have a great film industry in Burnaby. We're talking about, you know, how Mesa maybe get into the film industry and learning from them. They're also learning today about our downtown transformation. And they're having meetings with a lot of our city departments about our EV plan, our water, solid waste, our tree initiative, and others. They toured our arts facilities yesterday. I think the Asian District is today. The District 6, the Gateway Airport area, ASU, Poly CMC, still a lot of different things is showcasing what we have when we share ideas and practices and learn from each other, and it's been a very beneficial relationship, and I appreciate their efforts to be here in the 90-degree weather. Thank you.
Thank you. Alicia, you had a nice turnout at the at Falcon Field last night for the general obligation bond meeting.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the count was, but
Yeah.
we sure represented well, all the city staff that was there and the pictures. Oh, I'm getting 20. Yeah, well, that's not too bad.
Better than
Yeah,
we've
better
had.
than 3, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
But we still had a good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, but, and I think staff did such a great job of having the right people there, having visuals for people to see things. And so I think the people that were there
Yeah.
got a good idea of what the options are.
Yeah, I've sat through a lot of these meetings, and I learned something by being there, a lot, actually. That was kind of a deeper dive into some of the things that we've seen at a higher elevation here. It was very useful to be there.
So those bond items are going to be on our ballot in November. So it's very important to review those and understand them before that time. That we're taking the community input to create that list that we will put on our ballot. So for anybody out there, if you don't, I know we have a lot of community meetings right now, but if you don't have a chance to attend one, please go online and just fill out what your priorities, what you feel is important, and that will influence what is on that bond election. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Freeman.
And there's 2 more meetings, one on Tuesday and Wednesday, one at Mountain View, and then Westwood on Tuesday for Mountain View and Wednesday for Westwood. So come to those, please. Also, Celebrate Mesa is coming up, I believe, Saturday, right, Mr.
Yep,
Brady?
10 to
You want to
2.
expand on that?
No, thank you. It's Celebrate
And we're doing a
Mesa
t-shirt
Saturday.
toss. A t-shirt toss.
Oh, t-shirt.
Come get your t-shirts.
Yes, t-shirt. I was.
Get a tough t-shirt.
Celebrate Mesa, Pioneer Park, Saturday, April 13th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Great, thank you. We could toss some teachers too, maybe, right? I will, I was at a lot of these events, they were great, but on Saturday, there was a great event, Run Third 5K at Mountain View. This was a fundraiser for after-school running programs, quite a large turnout, so that was, thank you to everyone involved in that. And then earlier this week, I welcomed the Arizona Transit Association Conference here in Mesa. Appreciate all the good work that they do. Mr. Brady, other than, well, in addition to Celebrate Mesa, what does our future schedule look like?
Just a reminder, Monday, April 15th, will begin at 4:30 p.m. for more thrilling discussions about the budget, and then that will be followed by a council meeting at 5:45. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes, oh, I'm sorry, go
Sorry,
ahead.
can I mention one more thing? I forgot. This Saturday, the Commemorative Air Force Museum is having an event to celebrate the 80th anniversary of Operation Halyard, which was a rescue mission during World War II to rescue American soldiers in Nazi-occupied Europe. And so it starts at 10 a.m. And they have lots of different events going on through the whole time and runs 2 to 3 hours. So if you're around Saturday and a history buff, it will be excellent, I'm sure.
Great, thank you. Council, anything else? All right, that concludes our agenda. All in favor of adjourning, please say aye. Aye. Thank you, we are adjourned.